many slides here, so I'll just leave it like this. So, good afternoon. I'm Morgan Pence. I also work with all the folks that have been presenting for the other sessions today with the Wildland Fire Management RD&A, and I'm going to cover the relative risk, organization, and complexity sections. So, just a couple slides here. The things I'm going to cover are the NWCG glossary terms, just so we make sure everybody's talking on the same terminology. I'm going to pull up the PMS 236. We'll talk about parts A through E. And then kind of simultaneously, we'll also go through next gen, and I'll demo that using parts B through D and talk about the soon to be coming E, which I'll just do that live here. So you can use the chat to ask questions as I do it, and my coworkers will either answer it or they'll flag me down if I don't see them so I can address them. So let's first cover a couple glossary terms. So the two terms we're going to cover are the organizational assessment and complexity level, and both these definitions come out of the PMS 205, which is the NWCG glossary. So I'm just going to read these here. So organizational assessment is part of the wildland fire risk complexity and organization assessment, sometimes called RCA, here is called RCOA, also known as the PMS 236, which guides agency administrators in their management organization selection, both in escalating and moderating situations. And the org assessment can be compared with the current incident management organization. It may not always match the current incident management organization value or the complexity level. The authority for producing the organizational assessment lies with the agency administrator, and the options to select are type 5, type 4, type 3, and then last year it changed to be CIMT. So there's 4 options. So a couple of things to take away here is the organizational assessment is the assessment. It is not necessarily which organization is on your fire. You could have a different organization on your fire than what you are assessing as you escalate and moderate. They're not always in alignment. And also, it is not necessarily in alignment with the incident complexity level, which will lead me to that term. So this is again from the glossary. This is incident complexity level. The incident complexity level established by completing the incident complexity analysis, considering the level of difficulty, severity, or overall resistance the incident or event presents to the incident management or support personnel as they work to manage it. A categorization that helps leaders compare one type of incident or event to another. And the options are the type 1 through 5 for incident level complexity. Okay, so those are the terms. So now let's go look at the wildland fire risk and complexity assessment document, PMS 236. I am going to put this. Oh, I'm try to put the link in the chat in case anybody, if that works, wants to just look at it on your own screen while I'm zooming around in it. Also, this product is managed by the Incident and Position Standards Committee. And I wanted to start with the document, because it's important to understand that this is the authoritative product for the wildland fire risk and complexity assessment. On the WFDS team, we have embedded it, several parts of it, which we'll cover into WFDS so that it can be easily completed and then included in the WFDS decision. But this is a product in and of itself. And we are striving to ensure that the product in WFDS always stays in alignment with this document. WFDS has historically only held parts B and C, the relative risk and the org assessment. However, when part D, the functional complexity assessment, was added in 2022, not 2002. We worked to include that in Classic WFDS, and it's also now part of Next Gen WFDS. WFDS had not previously contained Part A, that's the firefighter safety assessment, but we are looking at possibly adding that to NextGen as development allows, and we do have plans to add Part E, the incident complexity level, to NextGen soon. So now I want to pull up that document so we're all looking at it together on the screen. Let me get a little bigger. Okay, so I am going to read the instructions aloud because there's a couple points that I want to make sure we get covered. Agency administrators are responsible for the assignment of the appropriate level of management, supervision, and staffing to every wildfire according to the level of complexity. Incident commanders and agency administrators should coordinate on all parts of the wildland fire risk and complexity assessment. So a couple things to point out. Agency administrators are responsible for it, but the ICs and the agency administrators should coordinate. It would be pretty difficult, I think, to move through this without some level of coordination. I just wanted to make sure that that's noted. So parts A and B need to be completed for all incidents. Part C is completed if the fire exceeds initial attack or will be managed to accomplish resource management objectives. Part D, you complete if the recommended organization in Part C is CIMT. We will definitely cover this. I'll show you in the system what happens if you don't have CIMT for Part C or you do have it, and how the system will show you what you need to complete. And Part E to determine the incident complexity level using the indicators of incident complexity. Part E is not currently in NextGen, but we do have plans to add it. Okay, so hang on. Now I want to pull up. Well, let's look at Part A first, and then I'll pull up both screens. So as I said, Part A is not something that we have in NextGen, something that we're considering adding. This is probably very familiar to all of you. It's where you complete your concerns and mitigation notes for safety assessment in all of these categories. And the form here just has like a text box that you can add to. Okay, now let's look at Part B. And I'm going to stop sharing and then share to a different screen really quick. If I can. I wanted to have them both up at once. Okay, 1 second. I gotta get my screen. Everything's half and half. My next. Oh, that's the yeah. Mine's got some battery. Yeah. So let's see. An important and sometimes confusing point with the switch to complex IMTs is there's still 5 levels of complexity. Yes. I will make sure and cover that again. And yes, there's a background conversation going on. I'm sorry, I'm in a new cubicle. Give me just 1 second. Okay, I am back, and hopefully the background conversation will be a little bit better. Okay, I need to share. Okay, I have NextGen up on half the screen and the 236 up on the other half of the screen. And we're going to look at filling this out in NextGen as we look at the paper form. So I have an incident in EDU. I've already navigated to it. So also a little tip that I think was covered earlier, but if you didn't get it, I like to use the little eye symbol, the watch. It makes it so much easier to find incidents that you're already looking at. So here's my incident. I did already push start decision, but I haven't done anything else. So it's fairly fresh. I'm going to expand that so we have just more screen real estate. And I'm going to cut to the relative risk tab. Okay. The relative risk has sections for in the 236, the form, it's a little bit of a different order. There starts with values, hazards, probability, and in next gen, it's probability, hazards, values. You expand each of those sections and you get essentially what is in the 236. You rate the each section um, on 3 levels, and a couple of places there's a 4th level. There's an NA when we get to some other sections, and then you write your notes and see how the 236 has this text here that can guide you. Well, let me get to the same section. So we do probability. It'll say like evaluate the potential for a long duration fire and rank this element low, moderate, high, etc. If you click the little question mark here in Next Gen, you can get this same helper text that kind of prompts you on what sort of information you should put here and what things you should be thinking about. So ultimately, you will select something, and then you must, it's hard to see, there's a little asterisk, it's red, you must type something here. But you can do more than just type something here. You can cut and paste images if you have, we'll look at a few other things like there's, if you have a graph, that might demonstrate, I think in the last presentation, there was some pie graphs shown. If you have something from that would be useful, or you have a picture, like here's barriers to spread. If you've got an image that illustrates your barriers to the fire spread and you just want to stick that in there, you can do that. I want to show you how to do that. This is just an image I took off the internet, but you would have your own image for your fire or whatever you were wanting to show your barriers to spread, seasonal fuel, something. You can copy your picture and you can dump it right in, and then you can talk about what the picture shows, what's happening. That was a bad example for me to put that in time of season, but you would put the appropriate information in that section, and you can add all the content that you want to describe the time of season, and then you continue to fill out all of the other sections for the probability. So the barriers to spread, I am just going to go through and pick some and add some dummy text, but you would put in here, again, clicking the question mark, you would read what sort of things you should consider to put in here and how you might rate them. If you don't complete a section or you don't fill in information, the asterisks, where you're required to, you won't be able to mark the section ready for publication. So I haven't completed everything. Here's what happens if I click ready for publication. It will say, please ensure that all the required information is completed and saved before marking it ready. So you can't do it unless you have everything filled out. And then you can save it though part way. So like what if I only wanted to fill out this section and then I need to go do something else? I push save. I haven't completed hazard and values. You could come back here and your probability section would still be saved. Okay, will you be bringing the low, moderate, high descriptive boxes back in as swift as classic, the help icon for each rating? I guess I am not understanding your question. Can you come off mute?
Yeah, sure. Hey, Morgan, it's Shelley. So one of the things like going through this relative risk process when working with the AAs and FMOs, a lot of times each one of these, whether it was few, moderate, or many, low, moderate, high, very high, whatever the descriptor is, On each one of these, like the help icon now gives you the descriptor. It used to pop up in the like help itself, an actual box that had like whatever that descriptor was different descriptions of how it would meet the low or how it would meet the moderate or how it would
Mm,
meet the high. And I would often have that up for the AAs and the FMOs to kind of like stimulate their brains to help, identify where they wanted to settle on the thing. And it's just a really super helpful process to have those boxes because a lot of times they're so busy with everything going on at the time, they don't really have time to like think very clearly. So if you give them something, they're like, yes, that's it. And so I just found them very helpful going through these decisions. I don't know if other people did, but I did go to the training and downloaded the old school stuff, the PDFs of all, but it was nice to have the them just readily available too, if you recall.
okay,
Maybe I'm the
Rick,
only one that used them. I don't
I
know.
see your hand. Were you gonna speak to that?
Yeah, yeah. Just a thing, real quick, Shelley. You're definitely not the only one who used them. We actually have those in the help content on that next gen homepage. So if you go into the WFDS user guide section in there, we've got those boxes for you, and you can still have that up in a window for them, just right as they're working on this.
Okay. I'll have to go find those because I went to WFDS Classic and downloaded like all the PDF versions in the training thing to be able to have them. So if I have to walk through this summer, which I'm sure I will, they're there. Yes, thank you, Jeffrey, for the good example. I appreciate that. Yeah. Okay, good to know that they're still around. Thanks.
And we do actually have the help content, any of the links to that, we have that in process. So those will show, we have the link back to the help content from the field level help box. So hopefully that'll help with that crosswalk.
Yeah.
It's coming. It's coming soon.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you so much. It's just so useful.
Okay, when I attempted to go to the homepage, I accidentally clicked on my home, so I have to get back to my incident, which is why I'm really glad that I used that icon, the eye symbol, to get back in here. Okay, so I think I was showing you, you can complete part of it and click save, but you can't push ready for publication until everything is saved, and the system does make you answer um, all the pieces and type notes, and that it is in alignment with the part B here. So actually, I haven't been looking at what I have been selecting, but when I get to the bottom, um, oh, here's those graphs like I was saying. If one of the graphs you wanted to use, um, or one of these graphs you wanted to use, oh, I must not have severe weather in my area. But if there was something here you wanted to use in one of your sections, you could take a screen capture and copy paste it in. Or I think my coworker showed in previous section, you can get these out as a PNG or a JPEG, and I could download it as that and then paste it in as well. I'm going to keep going. When I get to the bottom here for relative risk, all of the sections these are all the pieces I filled out. Oh, I should have left one blank so I could show you what, if it was blank, there would be no bar there, and then that's a good indicator you missed something before you try to save it. But you can see how these change. Like if I go up to the social economic concerns and mark that high now, this bottom bar moves to high. And if I put it back down to low, so you can visually see the changes you're making here in one spot. So rather than like scrolling back up and trying to remember which was which, this is a good spot to just look at them all together. And if you were filling out in the PDF at the bottom, it would be totaling your sections. So neither the 236 or the WFDS will pick what your relative risk is. It will just, like here where it's highlighting orange for moderate, it's just going to show you the majority that of all of your selections what the majority is, but that doesn't mean that you have to go with moderate for whatever reasons you decide, which may push you back to go back and edit your inputs. You could pick something different. So here I've come up with moderate, but I could pick high or I could pick low. And you do have to complete this text box as well. So you would write your justification or explain why you came up with the relative risk and um, connect it back to the pieces above. After you have everything completed on this screen, let me push save. Um, then you can push ready for publication if you're ready. And there's one important thing that does. That will push the relative risk that you chose, in this case, high. It will push it over into the organization and complexity section. So if I don't have that checked, oh, see, I'm going to uncheck it and it's going to tell me, I'm letting me know that I'm unchecking it and asking if I really mean to do that, because then it's pulling it back out of the organization and complexity section. It's not going to be populated in there. But I do want to check it. Ready. So I'm going to check it again. And now I'm going to skip over to the organization and complexity, because this section is just to talk about relative risk, organization, and complexity. The strategy component, we will have sessions on tomorrow, so I'm not going to cover that. But I know we talked about moving left to right. So likely if you were on a fire, that's probably you would move to strategy most likely, but you do not have to. And especially if you're reevaluating and you need to go back, you can jump the order. So I'm going to jump the order and go to the organization and complexity section, which is part C. So I'm going to follow us along here. So once I clicked ready for publication on the relative risk section, it auto-populated that my selection, that all the settings that I chose, the high, low, moderate, and high, and the relative risk that I chose of high, it populates it into the org assessment. So it just pulls it right over. And then the rest of the organizational assessment is rating the implementation difficulty and the socio and political concerns. It's very similar to the relative risk. You just expand the sections and complete them. If you want to adjust your relative risk, you don't do it from here. You have to go back to relative risk, which I'll just do that. We'll go ahead and make a change. I will say, yep, I'm going to unmark it, ready for publication. And let's say I'm just going to mark it low so we can see the change and what it does. Push save. For publication. And now when I pop back over to organization and complexity, this should now be populated with low, because I just changed it to low. Okay, and similar to relative risk, there's these question marks that provide some of the prompting on what you should be looking for here. And just like in relative risk, you can cut and paste images and add text as you rate the potential fire duration. And the same with your courses of action, your strategies. You can save intermittently. So if I just wanted to save here, come back later, or someone else is going to get in and finish it, you can push save. Keep filling out the social political concern section. Click save. And when I get down here to the organizational assessment results, again, like relative risk, it does not tell you what your organizational assessment is. It just summarizes the information that you put in, and you can, as you can see it change as you, so I'm going to put that to high. That was the last one, the ownership concerns. As you adjust your values that you select, the bar graphs change so you can get a visual summary. And get you to, I'm going to follow along here with this. This is where you select your recommended organization. There is something we have slated to change here. So if you look at the PMS 236, it's type 5, type 4, type 3, and then just CIMT. And here in NextGen, we still have it type 2/CIMT, type 1/CMT. This will be changing so that it'll just be one radio button and labeled CIMT. And then likewise, we will change this table so that it will match the table here, so that the CIMTs get merged into one. Yes, go ahead, Molly.
Hey, Morgan. So I had a quick question about that. Especially for the Forest Service, our AAs rely on the complexity to kind of determine their level of qualifications within the AA community. Have you guys thought about how to kind of handle that if you're merging the two? So I guess what I'm saying is right now for a wildfire level 2 AA and a wildfire level 1 AA, it's completely based on complexity. We have some workarounds right now of using the risk complexity analysis to kind of where things are typing out, still with the type 2 and type 1. But have you guys had any conversations about in the future how these two systems are going to work? Because that's also going to be, I think, a concern is the qualifications of the AA. And sorry if I'm opening a can of worms.
Oops, I started answering you on mute. This is not a can of worms. That was a great question. Let's just hit it here. So one thing is this section we're still in, Next Gen, is the organizational assessment section, not the complexity level. So you mentioned complexity level and agency administrators. So what you're picking here is not crosswalked to the WFA 1, 2, and 3 4 service. So, and then on the right-hand side, I am going to, hopefully I find it on my first try. Yes, I did find it on my first try. I'll put this link in the chat. There is some line officer FAQs right here. They're being updated for 2025, but it's very similar, just kind of like cleanup language. But the task books um, for right now are going off of complexity level, which is the 1 through 5, not organizational assessment. And if you need further clarity, I might be able to help you, but I might also pass you to James Smino and Ed Hunt, the line officer leads. But I think if you read through the task book and those FAQs, it'll help you understand it's the complexity level right now is what those are tied to. Let's see, let me put this too in the chat like I said I would. That's where there's some AA information. And it's different for DOI. Sure, all the DOI people know that. It's not based on complexity level, it's based on your dollar amount on your fire for the signing authority.
Can I just
Go
say,
ahead.
Morgan,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
think what we're trying to do is make sure that we are in alignment. We, WFDIS, is in alignment with the PMS 236. And so the PMS 236 did add in June Part E Echo, which is the incident complexity level. And then following that in this document, there is a bunch of crosswalky kind of stuff, much like what Shelley was asking for, like if it's this, then it's this. So if you scroll down a little bit more, Morgan, past Part E, like all of that stuff So that's where we get to the type 2 and type 1 complexity level versus the CIMT is the organization. So
Thank you, Sarah. And let me just pop back up the definitions. This is tricky here because when CIMT changed, then the terms were not all the same. But as a reminder, the organizational assessment, that is like your organization that you are assessing should, could, would manage your fire. So type 5, 4, 3 in CIMT versus complexity levels, which is the 1 through 5. And yes, at the bottom of the 236 and also in, I don't know, some section of the Red Book. This is, I can't remember the section, but this is also all in there, the indicators for 1 through 5. Okay, so I don't know if that helped clear up the question or just made it more confusing for you, but I reread the glossary terms when I get turned around. And sometimes people use phrases where they mix all the terms together in one new term. And then I say, wait, what did you mean? Did you mean organization or did you mean the complexity level? But when I, oh, go ahead.
Hey, Morgan. Yeah.
Yes.
So I guess what I'm hoping is that in some way, shape, or form, if the unit recommended organization or somewhere within WFDS Next Gen, they can make you can make a reference to that kind of crosswalk that we're talking about. Because I agree that the organization does not necessarily merit the incident complexity and vice versa. It really depends. But I guess I'm hoping for like some way for if you have a fairly new driver in WFDS who's working with an AA who may be unsure of when that trigger point is for them to bring in overhead, that next qualification level, that they have that kind of tickler. Like I know for the unit recommended organization, there's that question mark one that provides a little bit of clarification or reference. And I wonder if not there, but maybe somewhere else, like a link to this actual document or where the complexity analysis can be found to just kind of help provide that guidance. Does that make sense?
Yes, when we get Part E added, which was still coming up here, we will we'll do our best to make it look as close to the 236 as possible. That's our aim. It's not WFDS is not the product owner for the risk and complexity assessment, so we put it in here so that it's easily accessed for inclusion in decisions. But I think one thing is to remember too, in terms of crosswalking, this is an interagency application, and we need to make sure direction and information we put in is for all the agencies and doesn't confuse or cause conflicting or odd information for the DOI. Like, if you've selected this type of person must sign it, because that's only how Forest Service does it with their task books. The DOI does not do it that way. But thank you and noted. We'll do the best we can to make sure we get Part E in here that it's clear. Any feedback is always welcome. Which brings me back to this section where I'm pointing out at the moment, Next Gen is not exactly 100% in alignment with the 236. We have work in the hopper to clean this up so that those two radio buttons merge to one and it's just labeled CIMT. And then this table here changes so that there's not a type 2 CIMT breakout that will pop down into just one CIMT and it will have this exact wording right here. And that should be coming out pretty soon. Now I wanted to show you how Part D works. So remember I said, well, let's see, what did I say? Let's look at what this says up here. Part D, complete this if the recommended organization in Part C is CIMT. So if I select type 3, so not CIMT, and I push save, the user, see how part D right here is grayed out, functional complexity. And I could mark this ready for publication. And I don't have to do part D. But if I mark it as either of the two CIMT radio buttons, which again will soon be just be one radio button, and I push save, functional complexity up here is now usable. And if I tried to select ready for publication without completing it, I would get this message that is telling me, hey, you need to go do part D. You can't save this ready for publication without that. So that's how that feature works. So now let's go look at part D, the functional complexity, which is here in the 236. And this section goes through the different functions of command, planning, operations, finance, and logistics. And you rate low, medium to high the complexities within those different sections of the fire management. And just like all the other ones we've been looking at, you could click the radio button, you have to put text in, you can add pictures if that would help demonstrate your points and what you're looking at. And we also have text here that you can click on to read if you don't have like the 236 right next to you. It's right here. Okay, what if you want to fill out D for a type 3 organization? No, you don't get to do that. We asked the committee that manages the 236. We said, we see that it says Part D is only to be completed if you mark Part C for CIMT. Would it be okay if somebody filled it out if they had Part C of 1, 2, or 3? And they said no. They wanted it to work like this said. So that is how we have built WFDS. Now, perhaps if you still feel that it's important to capture the functional complexity, you could still write that up and stick it in some other part of the decision. But we built the application to work like they asked us to do, which is where you only have Part D if Part C is a CIMT. So I'm going to just put some text in here and rate these 5 sections so you can see how it works. Okay, just like the bar graphs for relative risk and the org assessment, as you click them, when you get to the bottom, there's a summary. So if you change like moderate to high, say I changed that last one. So it's a visual summary of the inputs you have above. And I click save. I can now mark it ready for publication because I have completed Part D now. Okay, let's keep going, which leads us to Part E, which, as we've already discussed here, is not in WFDS Next Gen yet. Let me pull up the definition again. Oh, well, actually, I didn't need to. They have it right here in the 236, which was very nice of them. The incident level established by completing the incident complexity analysis and considering the level of difficulty, severity, or overall resistance of the incident or event presence to the incident management or support personnel as they work to manage it. So if you were filling out the paper version, you could see that CIMT, there's not like a straight crosswalk. It's your typing is not the same as the team managing your incident. And we will soon have this in Next Gen WFDS, but it's not there right now. After you mark those 2 sections ready for publication, when you publish your decision, the relative risk and the org assessment values will go to Irwin. So any other systems that read or ingest those will be able to see those values. And the same will be true for the incident complexity level. When we get it in here, it will also be an Irwin value that we will pass to the other systems. See, there's one more thing I think I wanted to mention besides Irwin. Oh, yes. We are also working in the future, we don't have it yet, that we'll have a report that you can download from NextGen that will just push out the components of the 236. So you'll be able to download a report that'll just be the relative risk, the org assessment, and the complexity level when we have it. So parts B through E, that's not ready yet, but we do plan to have a report so you can push that out in its own right. And okay, Molly, do you have another question, or was that from earlier?
I do have another question.
Okay.
Sorry, Morgan.
No, this is fine. I just didn't know if it was old hand or not.
No, so one of the questions when I was doing our forest WPDIS refresher was, when do we check, and this relates kind of to your comment about Irwin, maybe not so much to the 236, but when is a good time to check, and I know it's not functioning, the defer to the 209 versus what's in WPDIS? And I know that that button is just curious because I know that, again, WPDIS may report it then. And because you mentioned Irwin, I thought that was a good segue. So I was curious, when should we check that button so that dispatch is pulling it from WPDIS?
I think you are referring to a button that we have under the strategy section.
Yes.
Okay. But we do not have that button in WPDIS for relative risk and org assessment. WPDIS is the authority, has the higher, what am I trying to say? It's got higher authority than 209 if it's been filled out for those two sections. So you would not read that from 209. You would WPDIS, remember the agency administrator here is responsible for these items. So when they sign their name in the decision, they have the hierarchical authority to do that. So you would not pull the other way around. Any comments, questions on that?
Sorry, Morgan, I might be a bit confused. So it sounds like if the WPDIS is signed by the AA, it is the default versus the 209. Is that what I'm understanding?
For relative risk and for the organizational assessment and complexity when we have it, that's the most authoritative source for those two fields. Per the 236, per the 236, the agency administrators are responsible for that, and they do that in WPDIS as part of their decision. And Wes is pointing out we will cover this. The strategy is those are different fields and there is nuances there onto when you would exchange with Irwin and why you might want to read the 209 versus why you might want to default to that versus set it and send it in WPDIS. But for these two fields, relative risk and organizational assessment, WPDIS has got the highest authority of the systems that write to it.
Okay, copy that. Thank you, guys, and sorry if I jumped ahead for stuff tomorrow.
No, this is good because it is true that the 209 also reports the current organization, the current management organization, which, as we discussed, might not be the same as your organizational assessment. You might currently have a type 3 team or IC, and the 209 reports that. That is a different field from the organizational assessment, which is like, what you think or suggest that it should be going forward. So those are different fields. And then the complexity level, 209 does also report that. And we don't in NextGen yet, but we will soon. And so that value will be exchanged when we get it added. Boy, I had a good tongue tie there at the end. I hope I didn't make it more confusing, Molly. That is all that I had to share on relative risk and org assessment for today. I'll hang on here for a bit. If there's more questions, you can just shout them out or raise your hand.
I just wanted to point out that we do have a hot link to the PMS 236. If you go to the relative risk rating or the organization and complexity, like the final, there's a link to the actual document if you want to compare it. In blue, did you see the blue? Up a little, it's above the high chart.
Oh, here.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Sarah. I mean, I've been looking at that. I never clicked it to realize it was a link. It's a clickable link. I learned something new in WebTest today. Which happens every day.
So what we're hoping is that as PMS 236 gets updated, they'll always use this same bucket because we did not know that, I think that the last update in June occurred in June until it was after June. So that'll help to keep us up to date.